Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's another episode of The Last Word on Rugby. Yeah, looking at the three losses this past weekend in the URC, and only the one win from the Bulls at home, and then a tough weekend of European Challenge Cup knockout matches awaiting the South African sides. We are chatting all things rugby. If you haven't yet, click on the like button, subscribe to our channel, and then follow us every Friday as we bring you the latest news on the South African rugby sphere. With me again today, uh, Ashfaq Mohammed, Mike Greenaway. Guys, quickly, let's touch base on what happened in Glasgow. Does it stay in Glasgow, or do we talk about that now? Ashfaq?
Yeah, I think what happens in Glasgow should stay in Glasgow for the Lions. I mean, once again, we spoke about it previously with the Lions. They're almost like the nearly men of South African rugby at the moment, where there are some
Again,
weeks
yes.
where they look actually almost world class, and you think, okay, this is the Lions is here. They're definitely going to make the URC quarterfinals, and they can go far in the Challenge Cup. But a blowout like that can really dent the morale of the side. You wonder what kind of mindset they have now going into Friday's Challenge Cup quarter or last 16 in Edinburgh, which is going to really be a tough encounter for them after what happened last week. But they have the players, as we said before, they definitely have the personnel to compete and to make playoffs in both tournaments and eventually get to the title. I think for the title, they would need a few more serious reinforcements, but definitely should be making playoffs and not losing 42-0, even if it is away from home.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, my thoughts there, Jeepers, that's three losses in a row now, and it's like that big defeat of the Sharks at Ellis Park about 4 or 5 weeks ago. That seems very, very distant now, and that exactly as Fuck was said. We're thinking this now. They've turned the corner. It's all going to happen now. But these false dawns have been have been false, if you like,
Yeah.
almost since that golden era of theirs ended when they made three Super Rugby finals. Johan Ackermann, Schweister Brain. We've just every year almost they look like they're going to get it together. They look like they've got the players. They look like they're putting a string of performances together, and then bang, it all just falls away. They implode. I agree. I think that 42-0 there, that was six tries in like 35 minutes. Um, that's just, it doesn't matter what the conditions are. And then they couldn't do anything with the wind themselves. I don't think they can bounce back against Edinburgh. I do think their morale has taken a big hit. Glasgow had one half of the Scotland team, which is not a bad Scotland team at the moment. They did well in the Six Nations. Edinburgh's got the other half. And those home grounds over there are really difficult to play at. So I think maybe a blessing in disguise for the Lions is if they lose with honour, say, in Edinburgh, and then they've got those four home games to concentrate in the URC, and really try and get their act together and push for that for the top eight. But I can't see them beating Edinburgh.
No, it was interesting speaking to their defense coach, Jacques Fourie. No one asked him how he feels after that 42-0 and the six tries that they leaked. But he said it's gonna become tricky for them now over the next 4 or 5 weeks to they can only push forward with one squad. They have one squad, so they have to navigate Edinburgh on Friday and then find the balance in how to play that last four games. So it's it it's going to be tough on them. Um, like you said, Mike, I don't see them bouncing back. It's another Scotland, a different Scotland city, but expecting the same result. One team, I mean that's probably relieved they are not playing after not finding their way in Ireland is Storm is taking a breather. Ashim, quickly on that game. I mean, discipline again. It's been the preachings of Pastor John Dobson. their discipline letting them down. They're not protecting their ball at the breakdown. And I mean, it's an Irish side. They must know that they have to protect the breakdown by any means necessary. But two cards, a red and a yellow. We can speak ages about that red, but I mean, what was Sasha thinking with that yellow card? 2 tries when he was off. Just your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, they started so brilliantly, Ethan, and you thought,
Yeah,
okay,
exactly.
yeah, they're kicking on from the previous week, and they really found their rhythm on attack, ball in hand, spectacular stuff, and we thought this is vintage Stormers here, and then suddenly all went pear-shaped, and as brilliant as Sasha Feinberg in Gomozulu is, that yellow card was really unacceptable. It was so unnecessary. It was sort of, I think, close to the halfway line or something. So it was
Yeah,
downfield. It wasn't even as if he was saving a try close to the line, I mean, because
exactly. Yeah.
you could have thought then he's taking one for the team, but that really wasn't taking one for the team. And, it's a pity because he's shown great maturity way beyond his years so far in his short career. I mean, to excel for the Springboks against the All Blacks, against the Wallabies as well, and so many other games. And you think, wow, this guy's a real deal, and he is. We all know he is. He's got the full range of skills, temperament, ability. But now he has a incident like that, and you think, oh, what's going on? I think perhaps it's just a case of wanting to do too much in his comeback to the team. He's been out
Mm-hmm.
for a while, and we know the injury issues that he's had to deal with, which would have been tough mentally as well because he's a really eager guy. He's a keen player. He wants to be on the pitch all the time and wants to call the shots. And he's a leader as well. I mean, junior Springbok captain and some would say even a Springbok captain in the making going forward. So hopefully he can just put those kind of things out of his system because just let the ball do the talking almost in a way because he's got it all.
So he will have
Yeah.
learned from that, Leighton, and I think you can write that off to useful irresponsibility. We all do the odd stupid thing when we were 21, 22. So hopefully he's got that out of his system. I mean, he will be terribly embarrassed about that, and obviously Dobbo and that people would have spoken to him, so he knows he did wrong. But it was almost an aberration because we haven't seen that kind of thing from him before, not that I recall. So, like I say, hopefully that was a one-off and it's behind him and he's learned from it. Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course, let's not forget the injury thing with the box and Russia as well. That just shows how keen
Yes.
the guy is. And not in a negative light now. That shows how keen he is to be operating on the highest level. I mean, to even at Springbok level, that takes guts to sort of almost hide an injury from Rassie Erasmus and
Yeah.
then play the next week against the All Blacks. So yeah, and the Stormers, they can still, as we almost say every week, can still rescue their season in the URC if they can just get that run together now. But yeah, it's tough times.
Yeah, they would welcome this break. It's a 2 week break, so definitely. I've seen some of the guys speaking about Sasha. He's been at Arsenal in London, watching soccer there. So maybe a good thing for some of the guys to switch off and have a week break and then get back on the field. Warwick Galant has been meeting and it seems like training with some fans. So let's see if they can clear their heads after that Ulster loss and really push that last 4 games. Talking about clearing heads, Mike, what's happening in Durban there? Can you clear the air up there? A Leinster side that was devoid of any superstars. What happened there?
Yeah, just to give a little bit of background before we get into the meat of it. That Leinster team that came to Durban was substantially weaker than the Leinster team that played the Bulls the previous week.
Yeah.
When Geordie Barrett obviously went back. Jock Nienaber wasn't even at Kings Park. He also went back, Archie Snyman as well. And they also gave a few other younger players who hadn't played against the Bulls a run so that everyone in their tour squad played. So they had 8 or 9 changes through the side that almost beat the Bulls. They were weaker. And obviously we know they're preparing for the Champions Cup match against Harlequins, which is the big focus amongst the European teams, the Champions Cup. As South Africans, we've been saying it a while, haven't quite switched on to just how massive that competition is. So anyway, it was a weaker. There was something like 8 academy players in that Leinster team. Now those are guys like under 20s. Just quickly, I'm digressing slightly. That's something that really is admirable about Leinster, is that they build from within, that they hardly ever recruit players, that the guys that are coming into their squad all the time are from within their system, from the academy. And I wonder if South African teams are quite at that level yet, where we can produce our own players from within our unions. Instead, like the Sharks, for instance, the new players who come into the squad are all purchases. They buy the Edward van der Merwes as the latest one. How many players are they producing in Durban? 1 or 2, sort of guys have come through, like Ethan Hooker from the academy. But anyway, that was just one thing we can maybe talk about at another stage, is are South African teams producing enough players from within their systems? Because Leinster is the team that we can aspire to. I mean, how they bring these guys through. But so the Sharks now, that is from a morale point of view now. So you are at full strength. Okay, maybe minus obviously Eben and Apelele Fassi, but that is the strongest team the Sharks can put on the field, and there's still 9 Springboks, and you're losing to a Leinster B/C team at home with your best crowd you've had all season. They had 29,000 people in Durban, which is the best crowd of the season. They're unbeaten in Durban, 6 games they'd won in a row, URC games. And that, a 10-7 scoreline, man, that look, both teams defended well. The Sharks struggled with Jock Nienaber's rush defense. But I mean, there's talk now, are the Springboks pulling their weight? I actually think they are, because that front row of Vincent Koch, Ox and Bongi, they're scrumming the other teams. They've done for a couple of weeks in a row. You look at the other Springboks, I thought Andre Esterhuizen was their Sharks' best player. Mapimpi played well. So I don't think it's a case of the Springboks are cruising. That allegation has been coming up in some elements of the media. I think they've got a little bit of a problem with their game drivers, with their playmakers. The 9 and 10 against Leinster, I didn't think functioned too well. I can't wait to see Sia Masuku back at 10, and I think that will happen it is going to happen this week in Lyon. And Jordan will go back to full back, where unfortunately Joe Pinksy struggled there. They've got a problem bit at full back. So I think that'll help things, is Jordan to 15 and Masuku to 10. Look, Jaden had an unfortunate game. He seems to have gone off the boil. They're missing, Grant Williams usually can come in and fix things, but he's injured. So I think they just got a few combination problems at the moment. But just while we're on the Sharks, it looks to me, the team hasn't officially been announced, but it looks like they're sending an understrength team to Lyon. In other words, they I wouldn't say writing off the Challenge Cup, but I think they probably are.
They don't want to win it again.
They're really going to put their focus. Look, if I can use a word that has just recently been coined, the Challenge Cup's the consolation cup. It's for the Orsorans in European and South African rugby. The Sharks have won it. They desperately want to do well in the URC. And I think they're putting their eggs in that basket, and you'll probably see the team that plays against Leon. There are going to be quite a few big names absent.
Yeah.
But yeah, but the Sharks need to turn around. They're on a bit of a losing run now. They need to do something to get their fans behind them. People are already scratching their heads about the Sharks.
Yeah. Hashim,
Yeah.
is Jake White putting his eggs in the Challenge Cup basket, or is he still firmly on trying to get that first URC title? Because they are the cream of the crop in South Africa at the moment, and after the last couple of seasons, they are due a title somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, I think silverware is important to the Bulls and Jake particularly. It just sort of is a symbol of progress, whether it's a consolation cup, as Mike says, or something else. And I think just quickly on the Sharks before I get to the Bulls. I mean, the Sharks did win the Challenge Cup last season, so it would make sense for them to sort of prioritize the URC this time around.
Yeah,
they're fairly high up on the URC log, so Champions Cup qualification shouldn't be an issue like it was last season. We because of the harder first half of the URC, they were out of the running for the top 8, and that is why Challenge Cup became the priority so that they can qualify for the Champions Cup. There's a bit of vice versa this time, and you also wouldn't want to send all those top box on a long haul trip to France just to get buggered by Leon somewhere or somebody for decision crowd riling them up and that kind of thing. So yeah, look, if a second string side can at least be competitive for the Sharks, it will be well worth it. But the URC. But yeah, for the Bulls, I think they still have a big enough squad to field the competitive side. Just judging from some things I've heard and some picks from the players on their travels, and Jake himself, to be fair, said it before that he can't really send a B string or B team overseas for this first game now against Bayonne in the Challenge Cup. And then send the other guys maybe for the two big URC games. They're playing Glasgow and Munster away on the same trip, and if they win against Bayonne, then there's a Challenge Cup quarterfinal next week, and then after that it's Munster and then Glasgow. So you can't really fly guys up and down nowadays. Just the cost is prohibitive, and just the whole setup, it will be logistically really challenging. So there's still scope for Jake to. I mean, he'll announce his team on Friday. For him to sort of bring through quite a strong side. And I mean, I saw Johan Goosen is on tour, so he could even get a run maybe off the bench. I hope Keegan Johannes still stays as a starting flower. But I thought he was really excellent last week. Just the way he controlled things, apart from the great goal kicking, 7 out of 7. Just the way he managed the game, used the boot when he needed to, got the width on attack with his passing game, brought the forwards into the game as well. That is sort of what the Bulls required, whereas Goosen is sort of hot and cold. He can come up with moments of brilliance, but then sort of the mundane stuff he battles sometimes with. So that's a sort of a balancing act that the Bulls need on attack. But certainly, yeah, they have the resources. I mean, Cameron Hanekom, Jake said, is also going to be fine after his back issue. They have Mpilo Gomede there amongst the loose forwards also. Nizam Kaur was excellent off the bench last week. So many, perhaps some of those bench players from last week's Zebra game could maybe start this week against Bayonne, but that won't mean much of a difference in terms of their performance because we saw the impact of the bench against Zebra. Yes, Zebra is not all great shakes at the moment, but they're much better than in previous years. So you must give credit to the Bulls. 9 tries, 63 points. You take that any day, home or away.
Yeah. You might see some traveling if the Lions win on Friday and the Bulls win. Then they have to come back to South Africa to come and play that quarterfinal, and then they have to go back to Europe. For the Bulls' sake, I hope it's not the case, but for the Lions' sake, I hope it's the case so that they can at least stay in the competition. Guys, quickly, we've had a chat about the Lions and their prospects on Friday evening. I really don't see them getting the upper hand there. The Sharks and Bulls traveling as well. Might have some slight hope for the Bulls, but they're playing a top side that side. Um, just your thoughts on that and what's going to happen over the weekend. Obviously, spaced out nicely Friday, Saturday, and Sunday games. So there's enough time for us to watch all of them.
The Sharks on Sunday, I don't think they're going to be taking the firepower over to be able to get a win there. Yeah, they're saving their big guns for their tour to who they've got. They've got Edinburgh and Ulster, I think it is. Yeah. The Bulls, I think, have got a fair chance, but I mean that Bayonne side is fourth in the French top 14.
Yeah.
That is well one of the toughest provincial competitions in the world, the top 14. So they are a pretty good side. Yeah, I'm not too sure on that result. Possibly the Bulls could win, but I don't think so. I think it's going to go with the French home teams, and the Lions are not going to beat Edinburgh. I'd say Sean Everett's team by 10 points there. That's my thoughts.
No, man, the Bulls are going to do the job, Mike.
I hope so.
You're going to win it. I think the key for the Bulls, I mean, Janus Gerson said it this week in the press conference about the hostile environment there. And you can just imagine Bayonne are going to get worked up with the home crowd and the Bulls with their reputation for being sort of now the top South African team at the moment. They would want to prove a point there and knock them out. But the Bulls have the forwards to do the job. It's a matter of just maintaining their composure, not getting sort of sidetracked by the crowd and perhaps a few cheap shots from Bayern. They had a few of that from Zebre last week in terms of spoiling tactics. Just lying on the breakdown on the wrong side, playing the scrum off, those kind of things. And I'm sure Bayern is going to come with a similar kind of tactics in that regard as well. But if the Bulls can just handle it and sort of make sure they go through their plays. If it's a line out drive, execute it. Don't now change the plan just because there's now something different from Bayonne. Stick to what you want. Fullback Devin Williams also said this week that the main thing against Zebre was sticking to the game plan, and sometimes that has been a challenge for the Bulls, especially at Loftus. In fact, this season, I mean, many of the players and Jake and the coaches have said they have the plan and it was working well. Then suddenly, there's sort of a wrong decision made or off the cuff kind of thing when that wasn't the right thing to do at that time. Throwing a loose inside pass or whatever. Just go through your phases. Stay patient because in the kind of fierce onslaught that they're gonna get there, that is gonna be the key. Instead of trying some fancy stuff or off the cuff stuff, go through your plays. Stick to that. Take the ball through multiple phases. Hopefully the weather plays along. I see there's some rain forecast for Bayonne on Saturday afternoon, but it shouldn't be too bad. If they can do that, with a forwards effort there and Keegan Johannes calling the shots that fly off, they have a very good chance.
Yeah, like Jacques Fourie said, hopefully all three, he spoke about his Lions team, obviously, but hopefully all three South African sides can play some heads-up rugby and take the ref out of the equation. They're in Europe, so they might have that. Guys, thanks again for joining me. It's been lovely. We'll do this again when the Challenge Cup round of 16 is done next week. It's another off weekend for the Stormers. They will put up their feet and watch some proper rugby from the other three South African sides. Mike, Ashfaq, thanks for joining me. If you haven't yet, remember to click that like button, subscribe to the channel. We bring you the latest South African rugby news on the Last Word on Rugby every Friday. Until next week.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.